They didn't choose him because he was the strongest. That was the first mistake. The chamber lights dimmed as the alien observers finalized their decision. Thousands of humans had been evaluated, soldiers, scientists, leaders, but one name kept resurfacing in their calculations: Daniel Hayes, a mid-ranking infantryman. Average physical metrics. No genetic anomalies. No remarkable achievements, which made him perfect. Unpredictable subjects yielded the most valuable data. Daniel never saw the sky change. One moment he was in the desert, sand grinding between his teeth, rifle clenched in sweaty hands. The next, silence swallowed everything. No wind, no heat, no war, just a room. Smooth metallic walls curved infinitely, glowing faintly with a cold, sterile light. His instincts screamed before his mind caught up. He spun, raising his weapon, heart slamming against his ribs. Unknown structure. No exits, he muttered, voice echoing unnaturally. Then the floor shifted. Not physically. No, it felt like reality itself adjusted. A pressure built in his skull, like invisible fingers probing his thoughts. Daniel dropped to one knee, teeth gritted, refusing to cry out. Cognitive resistance detected, a voice observed, not in English, not in any language, but understood all the same. Daniel froze. "Who's there?" he demanded. No response. Only that suffocating presence tightening around his mind. They were inside his head. Panic surged, primal and violent, but training clamped down on it. Breathe. Assess. Adapt. Subject remains stable, the voice continued. Proceed with Phase 1. The room dissolved. Suddenly, Daniel stood back in the desert, but something was wrong. The sky flickered like a broken screen. The horizon bent unnaturally. And the enemy. They weren't human anymore. Figures charged toward him, distorted, elongated, moving too fast, limbs bending at impossible angles. Their eyes glowed with an unnatural light. A test. Daniel didn't hesitate. He fired. The recoil grounded him. The noise reassured him. One target dropped, but instead of falling, it disintegrated into shimmering particles. Simulation confirmed, the voice noted. Daniel's mind raced. Simulation meant rules. Rules could be broken. More creatures surged forward. He adjusted, aiming for efficiency, conserving ammo. Every movement calculated. Every breath controlled. But they kept coming. Faster now. Smarter. One lunged. He barely dodged, feeling the air ripple as claws sliced past his face. He countered instinctively, knife flashing. The blade passed through like mist. Daniel stumbled back. Physical limitations observed, the voice said. Oh yeah. Daniel muttered, eyes narrowing. Then he did something unexpected. He stopped fighting. The creatures paused mid-charge, as if confused. Daniel lowered his weapon slightly, studying them. Not real, he said under his breath. So why play by real rules? He stepped forward. One of the creatures attacked. This time, Daniel didn't dodge. The claw struck his chest and passed through him. For a split second, nothing happened. Then the entire simulation glitched. The desert flickered violently. The creatures froze, their forms destabilizing. Anomaly detected, the voice said, sharper now. Daniel blinked. He looked at his hands, then at the broken world around him. A slow grin spread across his face. Yeah, he whispered. I see it now. The simulation wasn't just fake. It was fragile, and somehow he could feel it, like threads beneath the surface of reality, waiting to be pulled. The aliens had run millions of simulations. None had ever broken this quickly. Subject has identified structural inconsistencies, one observer noted. Impossible, another replied. The framework is flawless. Correction, a third voice interjected. It was. Inside the chamber, Daniel Hayes stood at the center of a collapsing world. The desert fractured like glass, chunks of reality peeling away into nothingness. The creatures dissolved into static, their forms unraveling. Daniel didn't understand how he was doing it, but he understood that he was doing it, and that was enough. "Okay," he said slowly, testing the air. "Let's try something." He reached out. Not physically, but mentally. The moment he thought about the simulation changing, it responded. The desert vanished. In its place, a forest erupted, lush, green, alive. Daniel staggered back, startled. What? Unauthorized manipulation detected. The alien voice snapped. Daniel laughed, a short, disbelieving sound. "Yeah, you've got a problem," he said. The pressure returned, stronger this time, invasive and aggressive. They were trying to reassert control, to push him back into the confines of the test. Daniel winced, dropping to one knee. For a moment, it worked. The forest flickered. The desert tried to reappear. But then something inside Daniel snapped. Not in fear, in defiance. "No," he growled. The word carried weight. The world froze, then obeyed. The forest stabilized, richer than before, more detailed. The air smelled real. The ground felt solid beneath his boots. Daniel stood slowly. "You don't get it," he said quietly. "If this is in my head, then it's mine." Silence. Even the alien observers hesitated. They had expected resistance. They had not expected ownership. "Escalate to Phase 2, a voice ordered. The forest darkened instantly. The temperature dropped. Daniel felt it before he saw it, a presence far more dangerous than the creatures before. Something designed not to test his body, but to break his mind. From the shadows, a figure emerged. Human. Familiar. Daniel's breath caught. "No," he whispered. The figure stepped into the light. It was him. Same face. Same uniform. Same scars. But the eyes. Cold. Empty. Knowing. "You shouldn't have done that," the double said. Daniel's fists clenched. "Psychological warfare," he muttered. "Figures." The double tilted its head. "You think this is a trick?" it asked. Its voice matched Daniel's perfectly. Every inflection. Every tone. "I am you," it continued. "The part that understands what's happening." Daniel said nothing. "You're not controlling this," the double said, stepping closer. "You're being allowed to." The forest began to twist again, shadows stretching unnaturally. Daniel felt doubt creep in. Just a crack. But the simulation seized it instantly. "See," the double whispered. "You're not special. You're just useful." The pressure intensified. Daniel dropped to one knee again, breathing hard. For a moment, he almost believed it. Almost. Then he laughed. A real laugh this time. "Man," he said, shaking his head. "You almost had me." The double froze. Daniel looked up, eyes sharp. "But you made one mistake." "What mistake?" the double asked. Daniel stood, steady, certain. You think I'd ever talk like that? The world shattered. The observers were no longer calm. Subject is rejecting all imposed constructs. Neural adaptability exceeds projections. Containment protocols failing. Inside the chamber, Daniel no longer stood within the simulation. He stood above it. The forest, the desert, the shadows, all of it floated around him like fragments of a broken dream, pieces of reality suspended in a void of his own making. He hadn't just broken the test. He had stepped outside it. Daniel flexed his fingers, watching as the fragments responded, shifting, merging, dissolving at his will. "Okay," he said slowly. "This is new." For the first time since his abduction, there was no pressure in his mind, no invasive presence, no alien voices, just silence and control. "Reinitialize system," one observer demanded. "It's not responding," another replied. "Then override it." "We can't." A pause. "What do you mean, we can't?" The answer came quietly. "He's using it." Daniel tilted his head slightly. He couldn't hear them, but he could feel something. A resistance. Like distant hands trying to push against him. He frowned, then pushed back. Somewhere beyond his perception, alarms erupted. Feedback loop detected. Disengage. Too late. The connection snapped. Daniel gasped as something surged through him. Not pain, not exactly, but information. Raw, incomprehensible data flooding his mind. For a moment, he thought it would kill him. Then his brain adapted. Patterns formed. Meaning emerged. Understanding followed. "Oh," Daniel whispered. The fragments around him reshaped instantly, no longer random, but precise, structured, intentional. He wasn't just manipulating the simulation anymore. He was rewriting it. "Subject has achieved systemic integration," one observer said, voice trembling. "That's not possible," another insisted. "It is now." Daniel looked around his constructed reality, then up, beyond it. For the first time, he saw them. Not clearly, but enough. Shapes beyond dimensions. Minds layered over reality itself. Watching him. Studying him. Using him. Daniel's expression hardened. "Yeah," he said quietly. "I see you now." And for the first time, the observers felt something they had never experienced before. Fear. They tried to disconnect him. At first, it was subtle. A quiet withdrawal of control signals, a gentle severing of pathways that once linked Daniel's mind to their systems. In every previous test across countless species, this had been enough. Subjects either collapsed, went catatonic, or reverted to baseline cognition. Daniel did none of those things. Instead, he remained standing in the void, calm and aware, as if nothing had changed. "Connection pathways are unresponsive," one observer reported, its tone no longer neutral. There was something new in it now. Uncertainty. "Force a shutdown," another ordered. They initiated a full system purge. Across their vast network, entire layers of the simulation began to collapse. Structures dissolved, data streams erased. Containment protocols triggered in cascading waves meant to wipe Daniel Hayes from existence inside their framework. And yet, he remained. Not preserved. Not protected. Present. "How?" one of them demanded. Inside the void, Daniel tilted his head slightly, as if listening to something far away. He could feel it now more clearly than ever, the architecture behind everything, Not just the simulation they had placed him in, but the systems beyond it. Layers upon layers of control, logic, and design. It all felt accessible, like doors that had never been locked. "You're trying to shut it down," Daniel said quietly, his voice echoing across the empty expanse. "That's not going to work." "You do not have authority," one of the entities responded, its voice sharper now, losing its earlier composure. "This system is not yours." Daniel gave a small, humorless smile. "That's where you're wrong." He raised his hand slightly, not dramatically, not forcefully, but with intent. The collapsing void froze. Every fragment of disintegrating code, every dissolving layer of reality, every shutdown command, stopped, as if time itself had been paused mid-breath. Panic rippled through the observers. Interference detected. "He's overriding termination protocols." "That's impossible. He doesn't have root access." Daniel frowned slightly at that phrase. "Root access," he repeated under his breath. "Yeah, that sounds about right." He closed his eyes for a moment, and then he reached, not outward, upward, beyond the simulation, beyond the systems, beyond even the observers themselves. What he touched wasn't physical. It wasn't even something his human brain should have been capable of understanding. But now, he understood everything. The structure of their technology, the logic of their species, the principles that governed how they interacted with reality itself. It flooded into him in an instant, and instead of overwhelming him, it became part of him. Daniel opened his eyes. They were different now, not glowing, not unnatural, just certain. "You built all of this," he said, his voice calm but carrying weight that hadn't been there before. "Every layer, every rule, every limitation." The entities said nothing. For the first time, they were waiting. "And you think that means you're in control?" Daniel continued. A massive presence stirred beyond the others then. Something older, something far more powerful. It entered the space not as a form, but as pressure, like gravity bending inward on itself. "Subject," it said, its voice vast and resonant, vibrating through every layer of existence. "You have exceeded acceptable parameters. You will relinquish control." Daniel looked toward it, really looked, and for the first time he understood what it was. Not just an observer, not just a scientist, a coordinator, a central intelligence, the one that governed the others. "Oh," Daniel said softly, "you're the one in charge." "Yes." Daniel nodded once. "Good." The presence seemed to hesitate. "Then you'll understand this." The void shifted, not violently, not chaotically, but deliberately. Space folded inward, restructuring itself in ways the observers had never experienced. The simulation was no longer a container. It was becoming something else, something they were inside. "You made a system to test minds," Daniel said, "to push them, break them, see what they become." The pressure around him intensified. "Correct," the entity replied. Daniel's gaze hardened. "Then let's see how yours holds up." The void collapsed completely. For the first time in their existence, the observers were inside the experiment. There was no transition they could perceive, no moment of movement, no shift they could track or measure. One instant they were outside, analyzing. The next, they were standing within a reality they did not control. It was disorienting in a way they had never experienced. Their perception, once vast and multidimensional, felt compressed, narrowed into something closer to what they had forced upon lesser species. Limits. They had never had limits before. "What is this?" one of them demanded. Its voice no longer carried authority, only confusion. The space around them stretched infinitely, yet it felt contained, structured, intentional. The laws governing it were unfamiliar, not random, but not theirs. And at the center of it all, Daniel stood, not elevated, not glowing, not transformed into something unrecognizable. He still looked human, but everything about him felt absolute. "You wanted to understand us," Daniel said, his voice steady as he walked toward them. Each step echoed with quiet finality. "That's why you took me." No one answered, because now they understood something they never had before. Perspective. "You ran your tests," Daniel continued, "pushed me, broke the rules, changed the environment, tried to control every outcome." He stopped a short distance from them. "And it worked." One of the entities attempted to regain composure. "You are an anomaly," it said, "an unintended result." Daniel shook his head slowly. "No," he replied, "I'm exactly what your process creates." The space around them shifted slightly, responding to his words like reality itself agreed. "You just never pushed far enough before." Another entity reached outward, attempting to re-establish connection with their systems, to reclaim even a fraction of control. Nothing responded. No signals. No pathways. No authority. "That's not possible," it said, its voice tightening. Daniel watched calmly. "You're still thinking like you're outside," he said. "You're not." He raised his hand slightly. The environment changed instantly. They were no longer in an abstract void. Now they stood in something vast, stars stretching endlessly in every direction, galaxies forming and dissolving in slow, silent motion. A universe, or at least something close enough to one. "Welcome to the inside," Daniel said. One of them reacted instinctively, projecting force, an attempt to assert dominance the same way they had over countless subjects before. The effect was immediate. Nothing happened. Not even a ripple. Daniel didn't move, didn't flinch, didn't even acknowledge it at first. Then he sighed. "Yeah," he said. "That's not going to work anymore." He stepped closer. "You don't get it yet," he continued. "You think this is power, control, like what you had." His gaze locked onto them. "It's not." The stars around them pulsed softly, as if in response. "This is understanding." A silence followed that felt heavier than anything before it. "You studied us," Daniel said. "Humans. Our limits. Our reactions. Our adaptability." He paused. "And you kept pushing." Memories flickered around them, echoes of every test, every simulation, every moment Daniel had endured. "But you missed something important." The entities said nothing, because now they were afraid to. "You thought you were observing," Daniel said quietly. "But what you were really doing," he gestured slightly, "was teaching." The realization spread through them like a shock wave. Every adjustment, every escalation, every attempt to break him, had forced him to adapt, to grow, to evolve beyond what he had been. "You built the system," Daniel said, "but I learned how it works." The universe around them bent subtly, responding not to force, but to his awareness. And once I understood it. He looked at his hand, flexing his fingers slightly as space warped in response. There wasn't really a limit anymore. One of the entities finally spoke, its voice barely steady. "What are you?" Daniel considered that for a moment. Then he gave a small, almost tired smile. "I'm still me," he said. He looked back at them. Just more. The silence that followed was absolute. "You wanted results," Daniel said. "Data. Conclusions." He lowered his hand. The stars stilled. "Here it is." The space around them tightened, not painfully, not violently, but definitively. The experiment was ending. Not by their choice, but his. "You tried to create the perfect subject," Daniel said. He paused. "And instead, reality itself seemed to hold its breath. You created something you don't understand." The last thing they felt was the loss of control. The last thing they realized was the truth. They had never been in charge. Not of him, not of the outcome, and not anymore of anything, because in trying to test a human, they had accidentally created something far beyond their design. Not a subject, not a weapon, not even a mistake, but something far simpler, and far more dangerous, a mind that understood reality well enough to rewrite it.